Recording is on.
What the hell is that?
The
Go ahead.
recording
Go ahead,
stopped.
Peter.
I guess this is like Zoom after all, where they only give you so much time to record and then you get stopped.
All right. Okay. All right. I got Connecticut on the phone line. Go ahead, there, Peter. If you're on speakerphone, can you guys hear him? Okay.
No, barely. He needs to
Can you
speak
guys
up.
hear him? Okay. Barely. I know. He's got to talk louder. I know. He's on speakerphone. That's what it is.
Tell him to get off speaker and see.
Okay. My callers can hear him. Yeah. Gonna see if you can get off speaker, Peter. We can hear you fine. So basically, he's saying that he has to see the case law. He's a paralegal, and he has to see the case law. Everyone wants to see case law when you walk into court. Former cases. You're not going to win if you don't have case law.
What a U.S. Supreme Court decision helps us.
U.S. Supreme Court decision? Yeah, if you got a U.S. Supreme Court
decision. Okay. All right. So let's, and again, I'm having problems with screen sharing right now. So the rights of a citizen to travel upon the public highways and to transport his property therein, a horse-drawn carriage, wagon, automobile is not a mere privilege which may be permitted or prohibited at will, but a common right which he has under his right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Under this constitutional guarantee, one may, therefore, under normal conditions, travel in his own inclination along the public highways and public places, and while conducting himself in ordinary and decent manner, neither interfering nor disturbing another's rights. He will be protected not only in his person, but also in his safe conduct. It says Thompson versus Smith.
Is that United States Supreme Court, or is that?
Yes, that's the United States Supreme Court. Right, we also have a secondary, which is Supreme Court, which is also titled Thompson and Smith. We have something I cannot pronounce: Canestra versus Mills versus D.C., Bavarian versus Lusser, Campbell versus Walker, Simon versus Lindsay, House versus Kramer, Brinkman versus Pakalike. Now, again, there's another one that's a very famous one. I don't know if it's going to list it here, but is Chicago Motor Company. It was decided, I think, in the 1950s. So they've never actually required a license. What happened socially is that this became a rule because everybody wanted to become in commercial practice. Why? Because then you could not be like the Three Stooges selling fish out of the back of your van. If you were using it for commercial purposes, okay, such as advertising your business and having a bunch of tools and your for sale sign on that, then you had to have a license for your vehicle. And that is where the original reason and social acceptance of the license came. And ever since then, somewhere it became a rite of passage to get your license when you were 16, et cetera, so forth, rather than what it is, a commercial license.
Through fraud.
Well, hang on. Oh, well, yeah, that may be true in all well in aspect, but the bottom line is that you're not going, it's just not going to happen. The courtrooms across this country, they may be corrupt, it may be broken. You're absolutely right.
No, it does happen. It happens all the time. In the local court, they have always won in appeals due to the Supreme Court. Yes, they have. Show me the case that lost in appeals. I'll show you somebody that walked in and discovered that, hey, you want to know something? I'm going to win this case. I'm going to argue that the moon is made of cheese. I'm going to show you the argument how they lost, okay? Because there's people paid to go out and do that too.
The Supreme Court, all these Supreme Court cases that you claim that you've read, I've read all these cases that have nothing to do with the driver's licenses or permission to travel on the road.
That's right. It has to do with the definition of commercial.
Yes, okay. And the state.
Okay, so all of that, you see, you're talking about a higher standard. I'm talking about a higher standard. The commercial
So now
standard.
let's travel.
Under the commercial standard, there's either traveling or driving. If you're traveling, you are not under the commercial standard. If you're driving, you are.
They can't, that
It's a higher magnitude.
you're not going to get pulled over by the police department and say, I'm a sovereign citizen, they're going to let you go. Am I right, Peter?
I'm not a sovereign citizen, man.
Right.
You want to use that kind of terminology, you go ahead. Because that's designed in order to sit there and make it so you'll never become a national.
Right.
You'll never become a national. Why? Because you sit there and combine freedom with slavery. Okay, in the same word.
The mere fact that Joseph is thinking with the term sovereign citizen shows that he's been sucked into the psyop. Everything's a psyop. They've got people all screwed up. They don't know what's true and what isn't anymore. I want to say
There is no such thing as a sovereign citizen.
that's right.
It's an oxymoron by itself. It was never a legal definition until they just tried to sit there and create new names for terrorists. You will not find sovereign citizen listed anywhere within the law.
That's right.
If you
Anyway.
state national, what will happen? If you
I can
state
find national
what
in the law all over the place. I can even find it on the mainstream media. That Chinese national, that came over here and stole all that stuff from the university. The Chinese national that owned a San Diego
okay, well,
biolab that was handling secondary biolab safety
Hold
in a
on.
fourth
Stop.
biolab.
Everybody stop for a second.
Mike,
Let's hear what Joseph has to say.
I got a
Don't
question
say nothing,
here.
Alan.
I'm going to put this to rest right now. I'm in front of everybody. I'm going to take my driver's license. I'm going to cut it in half. I'm going to take the license plate off my car. When I get pulled over, I want you guys to represent me.
Why?
Okay?
You never followed everything else we tell you.
Wait,
Because it isn't just cutting your freaking credit card in half. You're going to have to notify them that you have decided that you don't require it anymore and you're going to be operating in private. Until you do that, there's no point because we're still in commercial law.
Hold on for a second. Listen, Joseph.
Okay, well, that's where you start to become a national. We notify the national secretary that you have decided that your duality, they can treat you as a citizen or they can treat you as a national. You have duality in your status. You have two different statuses, not one.
Right, guys,
and you're not going to let them choose the status you have.
Stop. We can continue on this next week, but right now I'm going to cut this recording, okay? And before I do cut the recording, and Daniel just bailed out, because, when it starts getting too much, everybody's speaking all over each other.
He always does that.
Well, he doesn't like when people are all yelling on top of each other, and there's a lot of people
well,
who have a lot to say.
Argued with each other.
Like right now, I'm talking, and then you start talking. And now Alan's going to jump in. You know what I mean?
You'll carry on for 15 minutes.
It's not going to work if we keep doing that.
Joseph, if you want to bring it up and if you can share it, the link is in the chat for Jitsi.
Here's what I'm saying.
All right.
And then I'm going to cut this.
I'll post it in my chat.
I'm going to cut the recording after I say this. We can keep talking. That you could continue with your blog talk, and we could talk to people that want to talk. But for the purpose of this recording, I'm upset that you guys just keep talking over each other for so long. I couldn't even get in to make my point, even though I was yelling and screaming and trying to get in, because I wanted to say this before Dan jumped out, because I wanted to go to the point that Dan made about whacking at the limbs and not cutting out the root. Okay. He'd agree with me, I'm sure, with what I'm about to say. I was going to clarify his words. We're not whacking at the weeds. What we're doing here is planting new roots. Okay? We're reestablishing roots because we need to go back to our roots. Okay? And we need more people. We need more people to be on board with that. And the more people that are on board with that, the less of the points you're trying to make, Joseph, will even be an issue. Because the more people there are that are standing for their rights, as the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the Supreme Court has ruled, as state nationals under the original Constitution and not under a corporation, the more people that do that, the more successes will happen in the courtrooms. That's the ultimate point.
Okay. All right. I agree with that, Mike. I agree with that 100%. But we're going to have a system here where, we'll keep it down to 2-3 minutes. Everybody speaks and then say, I yield. So this way we're not talking over each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I apologize.
Well,
no, I just get passionate. get passionate about the issue because you know what? Look, man, like I said, that really did happen to me. I was kidnapped. And
No, I believe that. That doesn't mean these people follow the law. I'm just telling you what the law